My family mocked me for I wasn't as successful as my sister. You will always be in second place, Mom said laughing. I said, okay. I'm just kicking her out of my house. And that day, growing up I got used to the idea that I would always come second. Second in grades, second in sports, second in accomplishments, and definitely second in my parents' eyes. My older sister, Lestra, was the golden child, the successful one, the talented one, the one they bragged about to friends and family. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a whole other level of obsession. Lestra could do no wrong. If I got a B on a test, I didn't work hard enough. If she got a B, the teacher must have graded unfairly. When I got a decent job, my mother asked why I didn't aim higher. When Lestra got a six-figure salary, they practically threw a party. It was exhausting, but after years of it, I just learned to deal with it. Then everything changed. Lestra went bankrupt. She lost everything: her fancy apartment, her car, her savings. The same sister they put on a pedestal suddenly had nowhere to go. And guess who took her in? It was me. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't just leave her homeless, no matter how much I resented her. For the past 3 months, she had been living in my apartment, sleeping on my couch, eating my food, and doing absolutely nothing to change her situation. She didn't work, didn't contribute, didn't even try. She just sat there, claiming she was depressed and needed time to figure things out. Meanwhile, I paid for everything: rent, bills, groceries, and even loaned her $19,000 for a used car because, she said, people take you more seriously when you have a car. And what did my parents know about any of this? Nothing. Lestra made sure they still saw her as their perfect daughter. She barely called them, always saying she was busy. She made sure they thought she was still doing well, still successful, still the same Lestra they adored. And me? I was still the disappointment, the one who never quite measured up. That all changed on Thanksgiving. We were all at my parents' house, the usual family gathering: turkey, mashed potatoes, the works. Lestra showed up late, of course, and made an entrance as she always did. She even parked her car right in front of the house for everyone to see, knowing full well that I had paid for it. When we all sat down, the attention, as always, was on her. My mom asked her about work, my dad about her investments, my aunt patted her on the back and said, "Still making big moves, Lay?" And she played along. Lied through her teeth. "Yeah, things are going great. Had to downsize a bit for a new investment, but that's all part of the plan. You know how it is, short-term sacrifices for long-term success." I sat there gripping my fork so tightly I thought it might break in half. She wasn't just lying, she was going all out. Then, as if on cue, my mom turned to me. "And you, Kyla? Still at the same job?" I nodded, "Yeah." She grinned and shook her head. "Well, I guess someone has to come in second." The whole table laughed. My father, my aunt, even my cousin. "And Lestra?" She laughed the hardest. I put down my fork. "Okay," I said, standing up. "Then my sister's moving in with you tomorrow." The laughter stopped immediately. For the first time in my life, I had the floor. No one laughed anymore. My mom frowned. My dad blinked like he misheard me. And Lestra looked like she just swallowed a fork. "What are you talking about?" my father asked. I crossed my arms. "I mean, since Lestra is so successful, she obviously doesn't need my couch anymore. She can move in with you." Now everyone looked at Lestra. Her face had gone pale. She let out a short laugh, trying to keep up the act. "Kyla, stop joking around." "I wasn't joking." "Oh, I'm not. I think you should know that your number one daughter has been living with me for the last 4 months. Eating my food, driving a car I paid for with my money because, guess what, Dad? Mom? She's broke. She has nothing." My father's hand covered his mouth. My mom's expression hardened. My aunt, my uncle, my cousin, they all just stared at Lestra. "And her?" She tried to recover, but she was never as good at thinking on her feet as she liked to think. "That's not true." She scoffed. "You're twisting things." I stepped closer. "Am I? Do you have your own place?" She remained silent. "Do you pay rent?" More silence. "Do you even buy your own toilet paper?" She clenched her jaw, but still nothing. I turned back to my parents. "She's been lying to you for months. She's got nothing, but she wanted you to keep thinking she was still on top. And I let her stay with me even though I couldn't stand her. Even though I paid for everything while she sat around feeling too depressed to do anything." I turned back to Lestra. "And how do you repay me?" "By sitting here laughing at me with them." No one spoke. You could hear a pin drop. Then my mom, Ms. Lestra, can do no wrong, looked at her. "Is that true?" Lestra swallowed. "Mom, it's complicated." Dad jumped in. "But Lestra, you told us you were investing. You said it was going well." She sighed and rubbed her face. I needed some time. I wanted to tell you." I laughed. "Yeah? When?" When my bank account hit zero. My mother pushed back her chair and stood up. Her expression was unreadable, which was worse than if she had just gotten angry. You're telling me you've been living off your sister like a leech, while letting us believe you're doing just fine? Lestra opened her mouth, then shut it. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. And then my grandfather's sweet, quiet grandfather shook his head. Shameful. Lestra flinched as if she'd been slapped. I grabbed my jacket. You guys have fun finding out. I'm done. I walked out. I didn't stay a second longer. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I was finally free of it all. Little did I know that later that night, Lestra would show up at my door, drunk, angry, and ready to start a war. I didn't go inside right after I left my parents' house. I drove around for a while, letting the cold air clear my head. It should have felt good to finally let it all out, but something still felt heavy in my chest. Maybe because I knew that it wasn't really over. And I was right. When I came home a few hours later, I heard the door unlock. Lestra still had a key. I hadn't thought to take it from her before. She walked in, her face tight, her whole body tense, as if she'd been holding back anger all the way home. She slammed the door shut a little too hard and turned to face me. What the hell's wrong with you? I didn't even look up from my beer. Not in the mood, Lestra. I barely managed to fix what you did back there. She snapped. Do you even realize what you just pulled? That got my attention. I put my drink down. Fix? She scoffed. Yes, Kyla. You think I was going to let you humiliate me in front of everyone? I told them you were just jealous. That you couldn't stand the fact that I was more successful, so you made up some story to make yourself feel better. I stared at her. You lied again? I had no choice. She shot back. Dad was freaking out, Mom was pissed. I had to say something. I laughed and shook my head. Wow. You really are unbelievable. You didn't have to say anything. She snapped. Everything was fine before you opened your mouth. But no, you had to make it about you. You had to drag me down just because you couldn't stand that they liked me more than you. I clenched my jaw. They didn't like you. They liked the idea of you. And the minute they found out you weren't who they thought you were, they turned on you. They didn't turn on me, she shot back. Because I fixed it. But now I have to deal with Dad breathing down my neck because of you. Right on cue, my phone started ringing. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later it rang again. Lestra grinned. Go ahead. Pick it up. I exhaled sharply and answered. What? His voice was sharp. Why would you lie like that, Kyla? I closed my eyes. There it was. Lie. Yes, lie. Do you know how humiliating that was? Telling everyone that your sister is broke, saying she lives with you? Why would you do that? I gritted my teeth. Because it's true. Lestra already explained everything. He cut in. She told us that you were just upset, that you've always been jealous of her, and that you let your emotions get the best of you. I laughed. Really laughed. You really believe that? Kyla, enough, he snapped. Don't ever do that again. I don't care what problems you have with your sister, but making things up just to embarrass her in front of her family is low. I didn't say anything. I just hung up. Lestra grinned. Yeah. That's what I thought. I stood up. Pack your stuff. Her smirk faded. What? You're done here, I said. You want to lie to them? Fine. Go live with them. But you're not staying here another night. She let out a short laugh as if she thought I was bluffing. Come on, Kyla. Don't be dramatic, Dash. I'm serious. I grabbed my keys. Oh, and keep the car. That actually caught her off guard. Wait, what? The car, I repeated. I'm selling it. Her face fell. You can't do that. I smiled. It's in my name, Lestra. You never even transferred the title. That means it's mine. And since I paid for it, I think it's only fair that I get my money back. Now she panicked. Kyla, come on, don't be like this. You can't just take my car. It's not your car, I corrected. It was never yours. I grabbed my phone and started typing out an offer for the car right in front of her. Her face twisted in frustration, but she could see I wasn't kidding. She swallowed, then grabbed her duffel bag from the corner. She hesitated for a second, as if waiting for me to take it back. When I didn't, she scoffed and shook her head. You're a real piece of work, you know that? I just held the door open. Goodbye, Lestra. And just like that, she was gone. But the fallout was just beginning. For the first time in months, my apartment felt like my own again. No Lestra taking up space on my couch, no empty beer bottles, she never bothered to clean up, no more excuses about why she still couldn't get a job. I thought it was finally over. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was my mom. I considered ignoring it, but something told me to answer it. Kyla, she said, her voice tense. We need you to come over. I sighed. Why? A pause. Then, it's about Lestra. I should have known. When I got to my parents' house, I could tell something was wrong. My dad was sitting on the couch with his arms crossed, looking irritated and confused. My mother stood by the fireplace, rubbing her forehead as if she had a headache. My cousin was there too, sitting quietly in the corner, looking like she was just there for the drama. And Lestra? She was slumped in a chair, looking defensive. As soon as I walked in, my dad turned to me. Kyla, your sister says the real reason you kicked her out is because you're in love with her ex-boyfriend. I stopped. What? Lestra sat up and nodded like it was a perfectly logical explanation. Yeah. John, you've always had a thing for him. Ever since we got together, you've been jealous. And when we broke up, you saw your chance. That's why you left on Thanksgiving. You just wanted me out of the way. I blinked. Are you actually crazy? My mom exhaled loudly. That's what we're trying to find out. Lestra leaned forward. Come on, just admit it. You always wanted what I had: my success, my car, my place in this family, and now you want him too. I laughed. I really laughed. I couldn't help it. I looked at my parents. You can't seriously be listening to this. My father frowned. I didn't believe her at first. But then I thought, why else would you humiliate her like that in front of the family? I let out a sharp breath. Because she's broke. Because she lived off me for months while she lied to all of you. Lestra scoffed. That's what you want them to think. I turned to my mother. You don't believe that, do you? My mom crossed her arms. I think it's a ridiculous excuse. But if it's not true, then why is Lestra sitting here, unemployed, with no money, no car, and no plan? Finally, they got it. I looked at Lestra. Tell them where your car is. She clenched her jaw. I turned to my mom. I sold it. My mom frowned. You weren't bluffing? Nope. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and held up the screen. Right there. $19,000. The car's gone. Lestra sank deeper into her chair. My dad stared at her. So, it was true. She remained silent. My mother sighed and rubbed her temple. Jesus Christ, Lestra. My cousin shook her head. Damn, girl. You really thought that excuse was going to work? Lestra gave her a look, but said nothing. My mom looked at me. What do you think we should do? I shrugged. Not my problem. Lestra jumped up. Kyla, come on. No. I cut her off. You lied to him again. You tried to turn them against me like you always do. But guess what? It didn't work this time. Now you can clean up your own mess. I turned to leave, but my mother spoke again. Kyla. I looked back at her. She sighed. I know we haven't been fair to you. And maybe if we had been, we wouldn't be in this situation. That was the closest she came to an apology. I nodded. Yeah. Maybe. Then I walked out, leaving Lestra to face the truth for the first time in her life. But somehow she still wasn't done trying to drag me down with her. 12 days later, it was my dad's birthday. I wasn't planning on going. After everything that happened, I figured it was best to keep my distance. But when he called and personally invited me, I could tell something was different. We want you to come, he said. Everyone's going to be there. There was something in his tone. Something I hadn't heard before. I wasn't sure what it was, but curiosity got the better of me. So I went. When I walked in, the house was packed. Relatives, family, friends, even some neighbors. My aunt was pouring drinks, my uncle was setting out food, and my mom was in the middle of a loud conversation with some of the cousins. It felt like every other family gathering, except for the fact that, for once, the attention wasn't on me. It was on Lestra. And not in a good way. I spotted her near the kitchen, looking like she wanted to disappear. Her smile was tight, her posture stiff, and she kept glancing at the door like she was debating making a run for it. That's when I knew something was about to go down. I grabbed a drink and leaned against the wall, waiting. Then it started. My mom clapped a hand on Lestra's shoulder. So, Lestra, how's work going? Lestra tensed. You know, just figuring things out. Oh, yeah? My aunt chimed in. Any big investments lately? Lestra forced a laugh. I've got some things in the works. That's when my grandpa, sweet, old, never missed a church service grandpa, shook his head and said, she's unemployed. The room fell silent. Then my cousin snorted. And then, just like that, the laughter started. It spread like wildfire. My aunt was laughing, my uncle was laughing, even the neighbors were chuckling. My mom wiped a fake tear from her eye. Oh, that's rich. Lestra unemployed? No. No, that can't be right. Not our Lestra. Oh, but it is right, my dad said, sipping his wine. Not only is she unemployed, but she's also living with us. The room exploded with laughter again. My other cousin leaned over to my aunt. Hey, maybe we should get her an application for McDonald's. Oh, come on, my mom said, still laughing. That's too generous. Maybe a paper route first. More laughter. I just stood there, sipping my drink, soaking it all in. For 25 years, Lestra was the perfect daughter. The one they bragged about, the one they adored, the one I could never measure up to. And now? Now they were tearing her apart in front of everyone. Sweet. Beautiful. Revenge. Lestra clenched her jaw, gripping her drink like she wanted to throw it. All right. Very funny. Oh, no. Let's keep going. My aunt grinned. What about that car you had? The one you showed off last time? What happened to that? I smiled. I knew what was coming. My dad sighed dramatically. Oh, you mean the car Kyla bought her? The one that got sold because it wasn't actually hers? The laughter doubled. My uncle was practically in tears. Lestra looked like she was about to burst a blood vessel. Dad. Oh, I just think it's funny, he said, smirking. We spent years telling Kyla she'd always be second place. And now it turns out the golden girl was just a fraud. I took another sip of my drink. This was better than any revenge I could have planned. For once, I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to prove anything. They had finally seen Lestra for what she really was. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. I just stood there and enjoyed the show. Lestra never recovered from that night. After the party, she never showed her face at family gatherings. Not that anyone missed her. The Golden Girl act was over, and with nothing to brag about, my parents' patience was wearing thin. She had no choice but to get a job. And ironically, the McDonald's joke wasn't a joke anymore. Yep. Lestra now works at McDonald's. The same girl who used to walk around in $1,000 suits bragging about her deals is now wearing a name tag and asking people if they want their fries supersized. And the best part? My parents hate it. At first, they tried to tell themselves it was temporary. She just needs time to figure things out, my father said. It's a stepping stone, my mother added. But months went by and nothing changed. She's still living in their house, still eating their food, still refusing to face the fact that this is her life now. And they hate it, they fight constantly. My father complains about the grocery bill. My mom tells her to get it together. My grandfather won't even look at her. The same parents who used to adore her now see her as a burden. And me? Well, for the first time in my life, they actually treat me like a human being. They ask me how my work is going. They invite me to dinner without making snide comments. My mom even called me the other day just to chat, which was the strangest thing of all. Do I forgive them? No. Not really. They're narcissists. They didn't suddenly have a change of heart. They just lost their favorite child and needed someone to fill the space. But it is what it is. I'll take the courtesy. But I'll never forget how they treated me for 25 years. Lestra used to be the one who looked down on me. Now she's the disappointment in the family. And for the first time in my life, I'm totally okay with coming in second. A year passed. I was promoted at work, senior project manager with a corner office and a substantial raise. I bought a new apartment, one with an actual guest room instead of just a couch. Life was good. One rainy Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find Lestra standing there, soaking wet, mascara running down her face. What do you want? I asked, not inviting her in. I got fired, she mumbled, water dripping from her hair. From McDonald's. I almost laughed. And? Mom and Dad kicked me out. Said I had 3 months to find something and I didn't. She looked at her feet. I have nowhere to go. The old me would have caved. The old me would have remembered how it felt to be the family disappointment and offered sympathy. But I wasn't that person anymore. That sounds like a personal problem, I said. Her eyes widened. Come on, Kyla. I'm your sister. Were you my sister when you lied about me to our parents? When you laughed at me at Thanksgiving? I leaned against the doorframe. You can't seriously expect me to let you stay here again, just for a week, she pleaded. I have a job interview on Monday. Some entry-level thing at an insurance company. If I get it, no. She blinked, stunned. The old dynamic, where she commanded and I obeyed, was truly dead. I'll pay you back, she insisted. Every penny. Like you paid me back for the car? Tears mingled with the raindrops on her face. Please. I've learned my lesson. I have nowhere else to go. I considered closing the door, but something stopped me. Not sympathy exactly, more like curiosity. I wanted to see how far the mighty had fallen. Fine. 1 week. The guest room is yours. I stepped aside. But I'm not buying your food, paying your bills, or making excuses for you. And on Sunday, you're gone, job or no job. Thank you, she whispered, stepping inside. I won't forget this. I know you won't, I replied. Because this time, I'll make sure of it. The week was awkward. Lestra tried desperately to prove she'd changed, washing dishes without being asked, cooking dinner one night, speaking softly as if afraid to disturb me. It was pathetic, really. The same sister who once lorded her success over me now celebrated making spaghetti without burning it. Monday came. She returned from her interview looking deflated. They said I was overqualified, she explained, sinking onto my couch. They think I'll leave as soon as something better comes along. The irony wasn't lost on me. Well, Sunday's still your deadline. She nodded, resigned. I know. Wednesday, my phone rang during lunch. It was Lestra, breathless with excitement. I got a job. This marketing firm needed someone to manage their social media. It's entry-level, but they liked my presentation skills. I wasn't surprised. Lestra had always been good at selling herself. It was delivering that had been the problem. Congratulations, I said flatly. You still move out Sunday. That evening, she was waiting when I got home, a small cake on the kitchen counter. To celebrate my job. And to thank you, she explained. I know you didn't have to help me. I cut a slice, more hungry than sentimental. What's the pay like? Terrible, she admitted with a small laugh. I'll be sharing a studio apartment with 2 roommates. But it's a start. We ate in silence until she spoke again. I was terrible to you, wasn't I? I looked up, surprised by the directness. Yes. You were. I didn't see it then. I thought I deserved everything I had. That you were jealous because you weren't trying hard enough. She set down her fork. I was wrong. Yes. You were. I'm sorry, Kyla. Truly. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. But for once, she seemed sincere. Thanks, I said simply. Sunday came. Lestra packed her few belongings into a duffel bag, all that remained of her former life. At the door, she hesitated. We'll probably never be close, she said quietly. But I hope someday we can at least be sisters. I nodded, neither agreeing nor refusing. Good luck with the job. After she left, I walked through my quiet apartment, savoring the solitude. On the kitchen counter sat an envelope I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a check for $800, nowhere near what she owed me, but more than I'd expected, and a note. First installment. More coming each month. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. L. I tucked the check into my wallet, surprised by the conflicting emotions I felt. Not forgiveness, exactly. But something like the first crack in a wall I'd built long ago. Mom called that evening. Did Lestra find a place to stay? Not with me, if that's what you're asking. A sigh. No, I worry about her. Funny how that concern never extended to me when I was struggling. Silence on the line. Then, we weren't fair to you, Kyla. I see that now. Better late than never, I guess. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the city lights. For years, I'd been defined by being second place, the runner-up in my own family story. Now, I realized, I wasn't first or second. I was simply myself, successful on my own terms, unburdened by their expectations. And that felt like winning.